Well, in my now going on 6 years of doing this show every morning on KCMO Talk Radio, now on FM at 95.7, yesterday may have been the worst policy to pass Kansas City, Missouri City Hall. Now, had they defunded the police, which they wanted to do back in the spring of 2021, almost 2 years ago now, that would have been the worst policy, but I can't think of anything worse than what ended up passing yesterday at City Hall. Good morning. It is good to be here on KCMO. And by the way, it's what we told you and what we expected to happen yesterday on this show. There are going to be thousands of Kansas Cityans, including many landlords, who are going to be waking up today and realizing, wow, I just missed all of it. I didn't realize any of this was happening. Can we go back and get a redo on some of the city council votes? Nope, you can't. It was a 10-3 vote yesterday to pass this ordinance banning source of income discrimination. And the folks who only went against it, Nathan Willett, who was on yesterday with Ray Stevens, 10 to noon every day on KCMO, Wes Rogers, and Kevin O'Neill. 3 guys out of the Northland. The other 10 votes were yes votes on this. So what does this mean ultimately? Well, what this means is that it is going to be more difficult if you're a landlord in Kansas City, Missouri. And remember, this is not just about being a landlord. If you're listening at 6:06 in the morning and you say, well, I'm not a landlord, I don't care, I'm going to listen to something else. No. Just hang on. If you are a homeowner and you have renters in your neighborhood, if you have renters next door, if you are a renter yourself somewhere in Kansas City, Missouri, this impacts you. Yes, it impacts, obviously, landlords the most. But if you're just a run-of-the-mill Kansas Cityan, this will have an impact on you, potentially. You don't know when, you don't know how, and you don't know why. But understand that, when the KC Tenants Organization is giving a standing ovation as they were at City Hall. Mark sent me a funny video yesterday. KC Tenants, doing cartwheels and hooting and hollering, and half of them had masks on. I'm like, guys, would you get out of 2020 already? It's like Bill O'Reilly. I love you to death, Bill, but it's not 1978. I mean, these people are going to act like it's 2020 forever. So you saw these folks celebrating this news yesterday. And I'm just sitting back and I'm saying to myself, okay, now we have a situation where landlords of all backgrounds, all stripes, all colors, everything like that, are potentially going to have to accept people who have criminal records that they're not comfortable with. They're also going to have to accept Section 8 housing vouchers, like it or not. But let's focus on the criminal aspect of this. Now, we know that you can reject somebody, thankfully, if they have a violent criminal background. That was confirmed to us yesterday by a couple of the members of the city council. But still, if there is somebody with a criminal history that may not be violent, but you're not comfortable with it, you technically could not reject that person as a tenant at your property for that reason and that reason alone. Does that seem American to you? Does that seem fair to you? I'm not sitting here talking about, obviously in America, we have federal laws. You cannot reject somebody for race and religion and things like that, and nor should you. But I don't care what color somebody is. If I own a property, if you own a property, if you are a homeowner or a renter who lives next to a rental property, you should damn well know and should want to know who's living next door. And now the landlord of that property, theoretically, could not reject somebody who has a criminal history. Is that the Kansas City that you want to live in? And what's the end game of all this, by the way? The end game of all this is more government control and more corporate control. That's it. The little guy once again gets squeezed out. The little guy once again gets screwed. The small-time landlord who's got a few properties will throw up his or her hands and say, I'm out. I can't do business here. I mean, this whole thing's a lawsuit waiting to happen. I reject somebody and they're suing my rear end. Why am I going to bother with that? There's no point. So they sell their properties, they move out, and who gobbles them up? Well, larger landlords, people with hundreds of properties who have lawyers on retainer who can afford the legal bills who say, screw it. And by the way, that creates a monopoly in the system is what that does, which does not lower rents for everyday Kansas Cityans. That's the irony of what these people have done. They claim they're all about equity, equality, lower rent. The rent is too damn high. The rent is too damn high. Yet in the end, what they're going to get is a worse rental market. But don't worry, in steps the government with the Section 8 housing vouchers, and we're off to the races. So you see, this is a way for the government to pat itself on the back, for the government to continue to promote itself and to have a bigger role in what's going on in the housing market, John.
Yeah, it couldn't be that KC tenants could say, let's help you out. What's your situation here? Let's get you some steady employment. Let's teach you how to save some money. Mm-hmm. And then we go into, what is it, Habitat for Humanity that kind of does the small homes and the starter home things, right? They take over.
Yeah.
Get you into that program. Need you to pound some nails for a couple of weeks while you're helping us, right?
Let's help.
That's a program the government could implement, but they didn't.
No. No, you wonder why, right? Government, when I was doing a lot of work with Habitat for Humanity, the government here in Kansas City, Missouri, we tried to get them to, actively help out Habitat for Humanity. But here's the thing. The government, much like Social Security, the government doesn't actually want people to lift themselves up by their bootstraps. They don't. They don't want to create a 401k style system with Social Security because then you become a millionaire, right? If you took those Social Security checks for 30, 40 years and you were investing them in ETFs and mutual funds and S&P 500 index funds, you'd be a millionaire by the time you turn 55. Why would the government want you to be a millionaire? Why would they want you to be successful? Because if you are successful on your own, theoretically without them, well, guess what? Then they're neutered. Then there's no point in them. So they don't want people to lift themselves up by their bootstraps, whether it's in Kansas City or the federal government. They don't want it. So instead, they tell you you're a victim. They create these just awful policies in Kansas City, like the one that passed yesterday, and they say, don't worry, we're here to back you up. We're here to fight for you. We're here to look out for you, the little guy. And in the end, what are they really doing? They're screwing the little guy. They're hosing the little guy. The small-time landlord who's got properties, maybe a couple all over town. He or she is the one getting hosed here. And you just get there, you get in line, and you thank your daddy government. You thank your mommy government. And you act like they do anything for you. I promise you they're not doing nearly as much as you think. And they will hurt housing stock in this town. It will not be beneficial. 913-408-7957. I've gotten so many folks who have reached out on this, from people who are landlords, who are just concerned citizens, who are just fed up. They're done. We'll get to you. We have a busy morning ahead, by the way. I also got to play one of the local news clips on this story. I will do that. You know what? I'll do that next. I'll get to your calls, and you don't want to miss it. The reaction from some of the folks on the local news last night was wild on this. And then we'll get to the border, everything going on there as well. States are backing Texas. You love to see it on a Friday morning. Woo! Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. Let's go to Woke 41 Action News here in town. I will say they're the only ones, to their credit, who had this as a lead story on their website of all the TV stations today. So, I'll give them that much at Woke 41. So they're the ones who had the lead story this morning on their website about this source of income discrimination ban being implemented for renters in Kansas City, Missouri. Yesterday, City Hall, this vote came down 10-3. Basically, if someone has a criminal history, you can't reject them for that reason alone to be a renter at your property. Now, you can if it's a violent crime. That is something that Melissa Patterson-Hazley, who's on the Kansas City, Missouri City Council, told us yesterday. You can if they are a violent criminal. But, other crimes that you may not be comfortable with when it comes to somebody being a renter at your property, You technically would not be able to reject them for that. That's now law in Kansas City, Missouri. So let's roll the tape from Woke 41, their report from yesterday afternoon.
Thousands of Kansas Cityans are waitlisted for housing and Section 8 vouchers year after year. Even when they do get a voucher, their options for where to go are limited. Alicia Jenkins.
No, wait, stop right there. Their options are limited as to where to go. Well, I don't get Section 8. My options are limited. I have a finite amount of money to spend when I was here, as a renter to now being a homeowner in town. When we first moved to Kansas City, we had a budget on what we wanted to spend on our rent, what we could afford to spend on our rent. My options were technically limited. And by the way, that's how it should be. It's how the world works. If you want to have unlimited opportunity to live somewhere, well, guess what? You got to figure out how to make a lot of dough. And that's the beauty of America. You can do it. But that intro to this piece is so disingenuous. As if somehow, the entire world doesn't have limitations as to where they can live. You're driving to work today. I'm sure, many of you would love to live in a maybe slightly better place. But guess what? Your options are limited. That's how the world works. Let's continue.
Is one of those people.
I've experienced feeling like you're being pushed into a certain community because of the way that you pay.
Months ago, she shared that in packed council chambers.
I say that we're lazy, that we're violent, we're destructive.
But today, with an ordinance passing that...
All right, let me stop right there as well. That's a lady talking to the city council saying because she uses Section 8 housing vouchers, people perceive her as violent and lazy. That is completely unfair. When I was living in New Jersey at the time, it was our first rental. We lived in Oklahoma. We then went to New York City. I was doing freelance work at CBS Radio and Fox and some other places. And, we didn't have kids. We just had Kate, Woody, and myself. We had a one-bedroom in an affordable place of New Jersey right across the river from New York City because that's what we could afford. And it was a very nice neighborhood. It was a 4-tenant building, small-time landlord. And there was an older couple next to us who paid, at least in part, with Section 8. Most of us who have lived life and know plenty of people who have used it don't view them as violent, don't view them as criminals. Now, are there people that abuse the system? Absolutely there are. But to make this broad statement that any of us who disagree with this think that you're a criminal or think that you're lazy. Now, no, there are people who fit that billing, no doubt about it, but I don't paint with a broad brush. And I know many of you don't either. This is all about a mind game here.
It requires landlords to consider tenants who use housing vouchers, disability payments, and other lawful means of income.
Ordinance passes.
She feels just like this.
We're just asking for equity, equality across the board when deciding who to rent to.
But a property owner feels quite the opposite.
Thank you.
Because I can't protect my family, I can't protect my renters, I can't protect my neighborhood.
There is a $1 million landlord risk mitigation program to offset costs associated with accepting voucher tenants and an amendment for prospective tenants with a criminal history. He doesn't feel it's enough.
It's immoral to tell people what to do with what they have.
Jenkins doesn't think the ordinance checks all the boxes she would have liked either. But that's not overshadowing that she's anticipating the possibility.
I've always wanted to live in the Northland.
That her and her girls will soon be able to choose where they live. In Kansas City, Alyssa Jackson, KSHB 41 News.
Yeah, I know, because there's not a single person north of the river who's ever possibly, lived there with a Section 8 housing voucher. Are you kidding me? I mean, people acting like it's 1968 here are just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And by the way, the guy who yelled in the video, who was a landlord, his name was Robert Ontman. He was on Woke 41. I reached out to him this morning to see if he would hop on the show, but I have not heard back yet. Eli is in Kansas City. What's up, Eli? You're on KCMO.
Morning, Pete. I'm curious if the city who owns the Kansas City Land Bank and has hundreds of homes for sale, if you go to their website, the first two requirements before they'll even talk to you about purchasing one of the houses that needs improvement is a strict background check and income verification. I'm curious if they're going to lessen the restrictions on the properties they have for sale in accordance with what they're requiring landlords to do.
That is an outstanding question there, Eli. It sounds like a good question for the mayor last week, man, or next week. I've got to put that one down and make a note because the hypocrisy could be quite stark on this one.
And Pete, I got a follow-up question. I'd be curious to hear from a banking professional to see if this will make it more difficult for landlords to finance house purchases in Kansas City and if they would be viewed as greater risk.
Excellent question as well, Eli. I'll do some digging on it. I do know this much. The city admitted that the risk is greater on this. They are admitting that there is risk associated with this. Why? Because there's a $1 million fund that they are setting aside for landlords to protect them. If they're setting aside a $1 million fund for landlords, they are admitting right out in the open that there is risk associated with this. 913-408-7957. Where do we want to go here, gentlemen? I'll let you pick, John. All right. Steven, Johnson County. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Doc. How's it going?
It's going well, brother. It's Friday.
Marissa Hasley just started. She's at the Urban Summit every Friday. That they have a meeting, and she just started. She's been married to one of the former city councilors, my son. But I think that everybody that voted yes, the people that live in their district, they should get together. They should get a petition, and they should vote them out because they're clearly showing you they don't care about how you feel.
Well, Melissa was on the show yesterday. I don't know if you heard her, Melissa Patterson-Hazley. And, she said she talked to a lot of folks in the community who are small-time landlords, and now they're comfortable with this.
No. Listen, Ruskin Heights used to be one of the most elite places to live in. They let Section 8 move over there. Look what Ruskin Heights is like now. Mm-hmm. I understand their point. But you got to understand the landlord's point, too. They take a big risk, and I think every landlord should charge more deposits. Yeah, I'm fine with that, man. I totally am. Thank you very much there, Steve. I got a minute. Steve, go ahead. You're up KCMO.
Hey, I got mixed feelings about this. Elections have consequences. I don't know what you guys are doing complaining about this, who are in this district who voted for these wingdings who passed this stuff. You need to sack up and take your medicine. And this is what happened when you elect wingnuts, liberal wokies, and I hope no one gets hurt. But this is what you deserve. You deserve this. Give me a little Ric Flair on a Friday morning, there, Big Steve. Woo! Chiefs AFC champion. I can tell you're already starting the pregame, brother. Have a great day. Listen, Christy Nome is kicking in too today. Hey, easy does it on the bottle there, buddy. It's only 6:30. I got to run. News coming up in a minute. We'll get to more with you right after that with the border and more. We got Governor Mike Parson on board with this, but not yet Kansas Governor Laura Kelly. I don't see it happening, but it would be great if Kansans would call their governor and say, hey, join these 25 states, these other 25 governors who are siding with Texas in this border dispute with Joe Biden. Happy Friday. It's a Red Friday. Kendall Gammon will be here at 7:05. And for those of you all bent out of shape and asking me on the text line, yes, I will address the pay raise, the controversial pay raise that came for KCPD Chief Stacey Graves yesterday in 1 hour at 7:30. I'll do that. Don't worry. But right now, the top national story of the day is that 25 GOP governors signed on to a joint statement in support of Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, who put out a statement saying that he has a constitutional right to self-defense
days after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the Biden administration could remove razor wire installed by Texas along a 30-mile stretch of land near the U.S.-Mexico border. The only Republican governor who is holding out is Vermont Governor Phil Scott, which I admit, I didn't know Vermont had a Republican governor. Man, that state is as bipolar as it gets. You guys elect Bernie Sanders and then a Republican governor? How does that even happen? Like, I know he's probably not super conservative, but still, you elect a governor with an R next to his name in the same state where you put in Bernie Sanders to the U.S. Senate. That is wild. But anyway, Governor Mike Parson did sign on to it here in Missouri. That's a step in the right direction. Laura Kelly, of course, has not. It would be outstanding. You know, if Laura Kelly wants to truly show her bipartisan stripes, she would sign on to this. But she is not. So 25 governors, they put out a statement yesterday afternoon expressing support for Texas in its fight to secure its border with Mexico. They write here in part, Joe Biden and his administration have left Americans and our country completely vulnerable to unprecedented illegal immigration pouring across the southern border. Instead of upholding the rule of law and securing the border, the Biden administration has attacked and sued Texas for stepping up to protect American citizens from historic levels of illegal immigration, deadly drugs like fentanyl, and terrorists entering our country. They say here we stand in solidarity with our fellow governor, Greg Abbott, and the state of Texas in utilizing every tool and strategy, including razor wire fences, to secure the border. Now, let's be clear. These governors are absolutely right. And we always use this phrase, who's on the right side of history? Actually, John brought that up yesterday, that certain politicians and political parties like to use that phrase. I just want to be on the right side of history. Well, I'm going to use that phrase for a second because I think when it comes to being on the right side of history, I want to be on the side of defending a country's borders. I mean, you know, hell, how much money have we spent defending Ukraine's borders? Can we spend just a little there, Joey boy, on our own southern border? It's not anti-immigrant. It's actually pro-immigrant for those who want to come to America legally. That's what it is. And it's also about, yes, making sure that terrorists are not coming across the border. The Biden administration couldn't tell you who's potentially on a terrorist watch list because people are just literally running right across. And then most importantly, the biggest and most immediate impact for most of us is the deadly fentanyl that is pouring across the southern border. The drug cartels are as emboldened as they've ever been. You've heard from many politicians on this show who have gone down there and seen it all firsthand. And the numbers are just mind-blowing. December, we don't have the full picture yet for December, but it's expected that there were 302,000 illegal immigrant encounters in December. That is the equivalent of 4 Arrowhead stadiums packed to the gills. Close your eyes, unless you're driving, and picture yourself sitting in a seat at Arrowhead Stadium and looking around. And the place is packed. There's not an empty seat in the house. 4 of those at the border in 30 days, in 1 month. That would represent the highest single month total on record, and the first time ever the numbers have surpassed 300,000 in a single month. Of course, that doesn't include the people who cross the border undetected and escape directly into U.S. communities. How many tens of thousands of those were there? Now, as of yesterday, January 25th, the Biden administration had not released the official number, which is a pretty unusual move. It's the latest the numbers have been released in at least 8 years. The Trump administration never released a monthly total later than the 20th of any respective month. So the 20th of the following month, we always had the information on what the border crossing encounters were for the prior month. Today's January 26th. It's a Friday. I could see the number coming out today, by the way. Why? News Dump Friday. If it is a record-setting month for illegal immigrant encounters, then I guarantee you Today would be a great day to do it, by the way. I mean, there's never a good time to do it, but today would be as good a time as any. Drop it at 4 o'clock this afternoon. It's a Friday. People are getting ready for the weekend. The Chiefs, all right. Woo! I'm not going to think about that number. I believe they might be waiting for that Friday news dump. Who knows, though? Maybe they're just not going to release it. Hell, I don't know. But it would be my guess that I could see that coming down today. And it's not exactly difficult to see why Joe Biden would want to conceal the numbers. November was also a record-setting month for illegal border crossings. While sanctuary cities across the country are at the brink of collapse, this problem is not going away. And these governors signing on to this letter with Greg Abbott, I mean, it's good, it's great, I like it. But at the same time, you know what? Is it time to enlist the National Guard from these states to go help out, build some fencing down on the border, offer up some resources? The amount of money that we waste money on in our states, I mean, you know, if it costs you a few $1 million to get folks down there, help out, get them back, whatever the number might be, we're flush with cash in Missouri. Why not do it? I would be all on board. I don't know about you at 913-408-7957, but I would be all on board with it. I think it makes all the sense in the world. Because it is anyone you talk to who's been down there, and they've all shared their stories. At least many of the local politicians have shared their stories here on KCMO. It is wildly out of control, and the president is clearly abandoning his constitutional duties here and abdicating the presidency of the United States. I mean, it is, and I don't use this word lightly, but it is evil for a president of the United States to abandon constitutional duties like this. The equivalent would be if a mayor of a major American city decided, you know, this whole like fund the police thing and worry about crime, I'm not going to do it. Nope, I'm just going to throw my hands up. I'm going to step back and I'm going to say it's not worth my time. I'm not going to bother. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio as we get it rolling on a busy Friday morning. It's a Red Friday. We appreciate you being a part of the show. And, you know, if you're a Missouri resident, what do you want to see Governor Parson do? Sign the letter or actually put his money where his mouth is? And then if you're a Kansas resident, hey, give Laura Kelly a call. Get her on the horn. Not her literally, but, you know, call the office and tell them, and do it politely, by the way. Do it politely. Don't be a meathead about it, but just say, hey, this is something that we as Kansans should be concerned with. We've covered how many fentanyl poisonings in this state? Some right here in the Kansas City area. I mean, Cooper Davis comes to mind, the 16-year-old kid. Mill Valley student who got poisoned by fentanyl, died. His family now is bringing great awareness to the region on fentanyl poisoning. It's happening right in our backyard. And the people in charge are doing nothing about it. And Laura Kelly could step up to the plate here and show that she is truly bipartisan. 913-408-7957 as we roll through the show here on KCMO Talk Radio. Wide open southern border. Joe Biden has turned Border Patrol into basically a ferry service for illegal immigration. That's what he's done. And then yesterday, we have 25 governors, including Mike Parson in Missouri, who has signed a letter backing Texas in their fight with the federal government, where the federal government is now having the right to take down fencing. But the Supreme Court did not rule that Texas can't put up fencing. It just said that the federal government, if it wanted to, could take it down. So now you've got 25 states on board with Texas, backing Texas in this letter. But it remains to be seen what exactly that means. Kobe is in Bates City. He joins us on KCMO Talk Radio. And you are a member of the National Guard. Is that right, Kobe?
Yes, sir. Yep. I'm transitioning out of the Texas National Guard to Missouri.
Oh, you are? Well, welcome on up. I don't know if you're from here originally, but it's good to have you up here. What brings you up this way?
Just job opportunities. I work for the Pipefitters Local 533. I lived up here for a little bit in Leavenworth on active duty, and then decided to move back up here when I lived in Texas.
Good deal.
It's not as not. The grass isn't as green as they say it is.
Well, you know what? That's a good reminder for all of us on some days, my man, right? The grass isn't always greener. So
yeah,
take me through your experience down there in Texas in that National Guard and what's going on the border.
So I moved down there 3 years ago, and I joined the National Guard. And I think about a year and a half into it, was when Biden got put into office. And then our border just went to crap, and they never did anything about it. Well, then they started to deploy the National Guard down there for Texas. And me being in an MP unit, we were the first ones to go. And it was a state deployment. So with state deployments, you don't get federal benefits. So luckily I was on active duty, so I'm able to use my GI Bill whenever I want. Mm-hmm. But so for those guys that are career National Guard soldiers, they have to have a deployment of 180 consecutive days on federal orders. Well, they're deployed to the border. There's some guys in my unit that have been there for almost 3 years now, and they still don't get a GI Bill because Biden is holding out on making it a federal deployment. So it's all state money that's going to it to pay them while they're down there, and then at the end of their deployment, they don't really have anything to show for it.
Wow.
So
those guys must be pissed.
They're getting paid very well, but in the end, it doesn't help your future as much as it would if the federal government would just back you in that one simple way. Mm-hmm. And then, so when I moved up to Missouri, one of my buddies that lives up here, I can't remember what unit he's out of. They're out of cities. It's either Warrensburg or Kansas City. They deployed to Eagle Pass, mm-hmm. which is just another border city down there in Texas. They're all over. But, you know, they've sent the Missouri National Guard. There were National Guards from every state down there, every state that was supportive of Texas.
So Missouri's already got some National Guard down there, Kobe.
Yeah, they at least have one unit that I know of.
One unit. How many do you think they could have? How many more do you think would be useful down there?
Well, useful would be a broad term because their hands are kind of tied. As our unit went down there, you know, we were MPs. We know how to take care of. We know how to house inmates and all this other stuff. But we weren't allowed to arrest. We just called up on the radio whenever they crossed the border. DPS were the people who were actually processing those people. We were just kind of standing there as a facade.
Well, that's what. So someone just texted in, Kobe, and said, "My son is in the Missouri National Guard. He's been in Laredo, Texas, for months. They're acting like Walmart greeters because of federal regulations."
Right. Yeah. You don't really get to do anything. You just sit there and watch them. You call up on the radio if you have people coming across, and you just wait for DPS to come pick them up.
So really, it sounds to me like the best use of time for anyone, Texas or other state National Guards, is to help build some type of fencing or something to deter people, because once they get there, there's nothing that you can really do without the federal government's help. Right.
Yeah. A physical deterrent would be a lot better. That would be the only solution.
Could you do that? Did you do any of that during your time down there?
No, because I was an MP unit, and they like to use engineers.
Gotcha.
So,
but they could put folks to use with National Guards to build fencing and structures and things of that nature.
Sure, right. Yeah, like when I was on active duty, we would pull that C-wire that the news is freaking out about. We'd do that on our own.
Gotcha.
So we've done it before, and we have the capability.
Well, thanks for your service, Kobe. We appreciate you. I'm glad you're back up in the Kansas City area, and hopefully you're listening on 95.7 FM now. You don't have to listen on the staticky AM signal.
Yes, sir. Me too.
All right, Kobe. Thanks for your service, my man. Have a great day. That is very interesting, and great call there by Kobe. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio. John's in Blue Springs next up as we approach the top of the hour. John, what's happening, brother?
Hey, I got a couple of points to make. One is on the legalities of what's going on down there. I mean, it sounds like to me that, the governor has a great point that Texas has a right to protect itself. And it also sounds like that Congress is trying to force the president to enforce the law, which I bet is going to be deemed unconstitutional. But that being said, I love everything Greg Abbott's doing. My second thing is, what's this? Why is E-Verify never part of the conversation in this? To me, the magnetism is, a big part of this as well. And why are employers getting away with hiring illegal aliens under the table and the rest? You can't tell me that stuff's not going on. Ultimately, I just think the Democrats hate America. But yeah, I do want your opinion on that E-Verify stuff. Like, what's going on with that?
Well, thanks, John. Have a great weekend. I don't know. I do know this much. I mean, we can try to do some digging on it, get somebody on who's going to be an expert on it. But I know a guy who owns a landscaping business, and he told me, he said, listen, I hire, obviously, a lot of people of Latino background, but he goes, the ones I hire are the ones who are here legally, because he goes, a lot of the guys will tell me in my industry that they've tried to hire folks who are here illegally, and they don't want to actually work. They like America for the welfare state. He goes, I got to get hustlers of all backgrounds, of all stripes, of all colors. But he goes, the industry is not doing well with that group, put it that way. All right, coming up next, Kendall Gammon will be here on KCMO Talk Radio. Look forward to a conversation with him on a Red Friday. And yes, I will address the controversial raise for the police chief at 7:30. Don't miss that. All here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We've got the breakdown. We've got the numbers here. Looking at them right in front of me. Wall Street Journal ranked the airlines from best to worst, worst to first, however you want to do it. And for those of you who have been not even longtime listeners of the show, but listening even for just a few weeks, I still have the PTSD, by the way, from my travel over Thanksgiving. When I was on, I was on 4 flights over a week and a half. We flew in to see my in-laws day before Thanksgiving. I flew out on Friday. My family stayed because my sister-in-law was getting married the following Friday. I fly back the next, guess that would have been Wednesday. And then the family flies home with me on Sunday after the wedding. So 4 flights in about 10 days. And 2 of those flights were delayed, one by myself and then one with the family, by 5 hours each. So I spent 10 hours for 2 flights in an airport on delays. Both of them were with JetBlue. Mark, you missed this, by the way. The second one you missed because, you had the baby, or your wife had the baby. Sorry, I don't want to give you credit for that. Course. Your wife had the baby. But, I spent 5 hours in the airport at JFK with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old and a pregnant wife, which was just horrific.
That sounds terrible.
Yes. So I'm still recovering from that, but here we are. John's sick of hearing about it, by the way. So these numbers come in from the Wall Street Journal, ranking the airlines. And JetBlue came in dead last. 9th of the 9 major airlines when it came to overall rank, which was based on on-time arrivals, canceled flights, extreme delays, 2-hour tarmac delays, mishandled baggage, involuntary bumping. JetBlue was dead last, below Spirit and below Frontier. Now, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that JetBlue was now basically a crap airline. Like, when they came onto the scene 20 years ago or so, I remember them being cream of the crop. They had, the TVs on the backs of the seats. They were new. They were fresh. They were a hot commodity. But they have driven themselves right into the toilet. And these rankings of major U.S. carriers from best to worst had JetBlue dead last, and they were dead last in most of the major categories. They were dead last in on-time arrivals, canceled flights, extreme delays, and 2-hour tarmac delays. The only thing they did halfway decent in was involuntary bumping. They were 4th out of 9 in that. And that's probably because they're barely in the air. too busy sitting on tarmacs to even have their planes doing involuntary bumping. So they come in dead last. Number 1, and this did not shock me at all because I've flown them a decent amount, Delta. And you think about this because I remember a time 15 years ago, give or take, when Delta didn't have a great reputation. Delta was kind of middle of the road. If you're a regular flyer, you would remember those days when Delta was not an airline you would really care to fly. I mean, you'd do it if you have to, but, American was ahead of them. United was considered better. JetBlue, when it came out, was considered better. And now Delta, overwhelmingly, number 1. They ranked first in on-time arrivals, and they were second best when it came to avoiding extreme delays. That's what carried them. Alaska, number 2. I don't fly a lot of Alaska. I don't think many of us do. I think they're mostly West Coast based. Allegiant was 3rd. Southwest, big fan of Southwest, comes in at 4. American 5. United 6. Spirit 7. Frontier 8. And then there's JetBlue. Dead last at number 9 in the rankings for major airlines based on the 2023 airline scorecard from the Wall Street Journal. So that's my public service for the day. You've got the rundown. Avoid JetBlue if you can. I know the flights are sometimes pretty good deals, but now you know why, because you might not ever show up where you need to be on time. So avoid them, John.
Went to San Diego years back and see Alaska Airlines playing out on the tarmac. I'm going, hey, that's cool. They got Wolfman Jack back there on the tape. I just Googled it to see if that image was still there. So, yeah, you might look that up if you haven't seen it. I thought, why do they have Wolfman Jack on there?
Well, now you know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So there you go. As we get it rolling on a Friday morning, it's great to be here with you. A lot of you making this point on the text line after this Tony's Kansas City story dropped yesterday. I got a lot of attention that KCPD Chief Stacey Graves got a $40,000 bump, 20% raise from $200-ish to $240. Pete, KCPD has not been able to compete for an outside chief in a long time because the pay has not been comparable to other large cities. If we want new ideas, we need to eventually get a new chief from outside and stop promoting from within. And this may ultimately help that. I like I said, it's not about the ultimate number or the final salary necessarily, because I've heard that a lot over the last 12 hours or so. Hey, this is about potentially who the next chief is and getting monies in there to be more competitive with outside candidates, and that makes sense. It's really just a timing issue. The biggest thing to knock is the timing. And that's what's, ultimately coming down to the Board of Police Commissioners. A lot of this on the text line. Pete, real leaders give worker bees a raise first before themselves. And fine, that's a critique that is at least worthy of conversation. I'll absolutely give you that. And that's why this thing could have been delayed a few weeks. And I think it would have been much less controversial. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, the money thing's a good argument, I guess, a valid point. But at the same time, then Carl Oakman left the ranks and is the chief in Kansas City, Kansas, and has gotten results. So
yes.
You may not necessarily be looking for the most expensive candidates.
True.
So, it's more about the quality of that person and what you then want to pay them.
Absolutely.
The issue.
And I do know that one of the issues from Graves' perspective was that the KCK chief did make more than the KCMO chief, and obviously KCPD is a much larger department.
Certainly.
Yeah. But you're right. If it's results-based, which, once again, it's not all on the police chief, but if we're doing this on a results basis, two cities have trended in different directions, we'll say, the last couple of years or so. All right, as we go into the weekend, don't make the ridiculous mistake I made 2 days ago. So I met the girls after work. They were just out and about. It's for those of us with little kids this time of year, when the weather's like this and the way it's been the last couple of weeks, I mean, we're all going stir crazy, right? Can't just hang out outside, ride the bikes in the driveway and all that stuff. You got to figure out things to do. You don't want them sitting in front of the TV all day.
Yep.
Got to get them out. I actually, on Tuesday, Kate had to go get an ultrasound with the baby coming in March, and I took the girls to the mall. It was me and a bunch of old people doing laps. It was quite a scene. And we just walked around. We didn't really do anything. But it was a good time. Yeah, I got some steps in and the whole thing. But I was like, I can't go sit in the house right now. I'm going crazy with the weather this month. So I just took him to Oak Park and we walked around for a little bit. So Wednesday, the day after, I meet him at Rally House. And they were just, once again, kind of putzing around. Although Claire's been dying for one of those Chiefs cheerleader little uniforms that, you see girls wearing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so, finally we got her one and she's all excited. So I'm happy for her. She's been asking forever. So we finally pulled the trigger on one of those. So I go up to pay for the darn thing, and like an idiot, I just, my brain's fried. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. Do this, have umpteen meetings, and move on with my day. And right away, the lady at the counter says, what's your email? And I give her my email, like a sucker. And I'm just like, here's my email. And now I've got, and I like the store. I'm not trying to rag on them. But I got 6 emails in 24 hours from them. I'm like, you know what? This is BS. If you want my email, then I want a discount. Because now I got to unsubscribe to the damn emails. And, it takes, wait up to a week to make sure your email is actually unsubscribed. So I got all these other emails flowing in. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm buying something from you. You don't get more from me. You get the money for the purchase of the product, and that's it. I'm done with this give me your email crap, and then I, as a sucker, say, here's my email, PETE. No, you're not getting my email anymore. Stop asking me for my email. I'm giving you money for the product you're selling me, and that's it. Those days are over.
Sometimes they try to get you with we can email you the receipt. And I'm like, no. I don't need a receipt.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Boomer Club.
I know. I sound like one. But you know what?
Are you a rewards member? No, I'm not paying you $10 a month for you to offer me a discount.
Yeah, that doesn't get me the $12 back.
Yeah. No, I am not a member. No, you can't have my email. I just want to pay and go. I don't know how many times I've said that. I said, look, dude, I just want to pay and go.
Yeah.
You got your phone number? Can you put that in? No.
But, when and I'm not trying to make excuses for myself, but I will make an excuse for myself as I say I won't make one. You're standing there in a Rally House with 2 little kids who are literally trying to break everything in sight, or at least one of them is. The 2-year-old has just no restraint. And what's your email? Here's my email, PETE, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, and then I walk out of the store. I'm like, why did I just do that? But then I didn't think anything of it. And then I wake up the next day with 3 emails from Rally House.
There's a Facebook meeting of Jack Nicholson freezing. I think it's from The Shining movie,
yes.
Right? But my friends drive trucks, so they're out there in this cold weather a couple of weeks ago, and they're at the pump. Would you like a car wash? Would you like a receipt?
Yeah.
Just got that frozen Jack
That's
Nicholson.
right.
Like, no, I just want to fill up the truck.
I just want to put gas in the damn car. I just want to buy this thing for my kid at Rally House and leave me alone, and I'll come back when I want to. Oh, it's infuriating. But you know what? It's my own damn fault. So shame on me. Don't make that mistake when you take the kids out this weekend.